Thank y'all so much for coming. This is the fourth installment.
It's 3.
Or third one?
Yeah.
Well, it feels like the fourth one after all the snow.
We're not mathematicians.
No, we just do marketing.
Yeah.
At any rate, thanks for coming. This is the third installment of Triangle Marketing Club. We're thrilled to have y'all here. The attendance is always going up. It's a cool thing to see. First of all, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. First of all, BP Studios for doing the filming as always. Christy, do appreciate it. We also have Cole's company.
The Design Studio.
My company, iNet Process. We also have Maxit
Media.
Maxit Media with Jake's crew. And then Scott Evans, if he would actually show up. Yes, Scott, we're talking about you.
And most importantly, actually, thank you to Fox and Hound. For those who don't know, Fox and Hound is actually launching a new menu tomorrow. We do have copies of that if you'd like to take a look at it.
At any rate, and I love the fact that people are connecting. As of this week, we've had 7 jobs and 5 internships start, which we're thrilled to have, as well as 1 partnership. So it's cool that we're starting a kind of a matrix-like community. For that in mind, I put a comment on the board about this, but I did want to mention, put your LinkedIn profile on the Meetup if you're interested, because it gives people a way to find you through the group. The other thing is, try and connect a little more, because like I said, this will start really ramping up and getting more people, finding jobs and also finding work, whatever it is they're looking for. Tonight, we are thrilled to have Neal Isaacs present. We're going to be talking about sales funnels and how you can better connect your marketing and sales funnels and get better feedback from your sales team on what your marketing is doing for them. Because in the end run, they really are your customers. Anything else before we start? All right. And Neal does have a super secret gift to give away at the end of the night.
Yeah.
You have to give your business cards to get one, though. All right, Neal?
Yeah, thanks again, Neal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. All right. This mic is for the folks at home, so it's not going to help you hear me at all. So, can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm going to try and yell, but if you can't hear me, just let me know. So, I want to start out just with some props for Chris and Cole, because I've been to all 3 events, and to see Ellen, to see Richard, to see Core, to see the talent that Chris and Cole have put together and brought this marketing group community together, I think it's something that the community really needs. The marketing community in Raleigh really needed a place for us to get together. So let's just give it up real quick for Chris and Cole. I like to embarrass them a little bit. So here's the quick house rules. I'm going to speak for about 30 minutes or so. I encourage you to get social. The hashtag of the evening is TMC tonight. I am at Neal Isaacs, and talk about what's going on. For the people that can't be here, you're welcome to bring them in with social media. So Twitter, YouTube, Google+, whatever. I encourage social behavior. We don't have any YouTubers tonight. There's some scheduled tweets going on tonight as well, so if you see tweets coming out from me, that's through Hootsuite. But what I want to do right now is kind of start with a poll. I want to gauge the audience. If you're in sales, please raise your hand. So for the folks playing at home, probably well over half. If you're in B2B sales, raise your hand. Still a lot of people in B2B sales tonight. So I've seen this poll done several times in other places, and I've seen a recruiter do this poll, and they said the people who didn't raise their hand were wrong. Now, I'm not going to call anyone out tonight, but I will agree with the recruiter in that we're all in sales to some degree, and that we're all competing for people's time and attention, and more so their time, to communicate the value of spending time with us. So that's what I was tasked with tonight by Chris and Cole, was to articulate how I do my sales, how I generate new leads, business revenue for Time Warner. And I'm going to walk you through my process. It's what works for me, but I want to share some of that. And to tie it into the sales and marketing feedback loops, which is our topic for tonight, I'm willing to admit that when I heard sales and marketing feedback loops, I didn't know what that was. I'm just going to put it right out there. It's like, what's that? I thought they made it up. So it's the latest buzzword. All it means is listening to your voice of the customer feedback and then iterating on it. Listening to what your customers are telling you, and then when you approach them, to adjust your approach and to refine your process. That's all that closing the sales and feedback loop means. The purchase funnel is a great visual of this, and all it means is, we've seen this before, it's a classic marketing funnel. No one's going to buy anything from you if they're not aware of you, if they're not considering you, or if they have intent to actually purchase something. So, about me, why am I here? I mean, really, why am I here? I asked that question. Seriously, why am I here? I've been in sales at Time Warner for 4 years in the B2B space. Before that, I cut my teeth selling copiers, which is a tough sales gig. Before that, I moved to the Triangle in 2003 and I opened a retail facility where I sold tropical fish, and I got approached by B2B salespeople. And before that, I worked in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I dove with sharks. And connect with me afterwards to hear about that, because that was a whole nother story there. But I like to think I'm qualified for the B2B world because I've swam with sharks. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about the problem at hand, and let's talk about you, because that's all anybody cares about, really, is how about me. It's all about me. Am I right? Thank you. So my challenge, my specific challenge, and then I'll get to you, is I'm trying to sell media, digital media, to business owners, marketing managers, people who are running a business and who are probably running payroll, logistics. They've got lots of stuff going on, and marketing is just a fraction of what they're worried about. It's all of what I'm worried about, but it may not be their top concern. Furthermore, I'm asking them for a considerable amount of money. To market correctly in this market, it costs a decent amount of money. And being a small business owner, I know that nobody likes to write a check for that kind of money. Probably most critically is I'm asking for their time. And that's another thing that's precious to a business owner. I can tell you from being a business owner that I had 10, 12 people a day calling me and trying to get me to buy something from them. So they're inundated with people trying to get their attention and their time and their money. So how do you break through? What does this mean to you? Well, you may be looking for the same type of prospects that I am, or you may be looking for a new sponsor or a lender. It could be any type of decision maker, a CMO, a CTO, a CXO of some sort. But all of us need to break through the noise and get the attention of these decision makers. So that's what it means to you, is hopefully there's something that we can learn about to make that transition and break through the noise. So almost 100 years ago, Dale Carnegie said, and I quote, "There's only one way to get anybody to do anything, and that is by making that person want to do it." So I'm going to talk to you about my process that I use to try and get people to want to give me their time and money. It's pretty simple. There's 3 parts to it. Those parts, I'll tell you right now, it's not a secret. I'm going to isolate the decision maker. I'm going to strategize on how to reach the decision maker, and then I'm going to persistently and professionally touch that decision maker. And tonight I'm going to spend the most time on that third one, because that's the one that actually takes the most amount of time. That's the one that's most important. That's the one that most people just fail on, quite frankly. So let's start with that first one, isolating the decision maker. It's interesting in my job specifically, because when I'm looking for a decision maker, it's kind of meta. And by that I mean the marketing business is all about reach and frequency. I'm trying to convince an advertiser that if we put their message out to the right audience with the right frequency, then when that audience needs the product of my client, They're going to know about them. They're going to be aware of them. They'll remember them. And it'll be loud enough so that they hear. When I'm isolating a decision maker, it's the exact same process, only I'm launching this campaign on one individual. So when I'm isolating the decision maker, I'm making sure I'm hyper-focused on the right person, because the last thing that I want to do is launch a campaign to reach a person who's not qualified to buy my product. A lot of people will purport to be decision makers in an organization, and they have no authority to buy anything. So, some tools I use to isolate a decision maker. Obviously, we all go to the website and we look at the About Me section. That's kind of a no-brainer. You start there. We hit LinkedIn, see who the company says is in charge, or who our connections may be that work at the company. I particularly use the North Carolina Secretary of Commerce website. It works extremely well. I know when I ran my business, I paid them $200 a year to keep my business information up to date. And so I know that I was the owner of that store. If you go on the Secretary of Commerce site, to this day, it shows that I was the decision maker at my former retail store. So for me, that's a wonderful source of business intelligence to gather information on a decision maker. These are some of the tools. Another one I use sometimes is informational interviewing. I came across a person who had just been fired from a job, and I connected with her on LinkedIn. I tried to approach her about, I was interested in the company, but she had just gotten fired, and she was open enough to kind of share her plight with me, and I tried to connect her with some other people and see if I could help her find another job since I'm in the marketing business. She, in turn, gave me all kinds of great information on who was the new decision makers at the place that she'd left. So that's another kind of back way to isolate a decision maker, is informational interviewing. So that technique I want to dive into a little bit later when it comes to the strategy of breaking through to decision makers. But that's an interesting way to do it. And LinkedIn is critical. So let's say you've isolated your decision maker. The next thing is, step 2 is strategizing the campaign. Here's what you don't want to do. You call them up and you say, hey, I want to sell you stuff. Are you buying? You want to do basically the opposite of that. Am I right? So when I say think about a strategy, what I mean is you need to literally get inside your prospect's head. Think about their pain points. Think about what they're hoping to improve or accomplish. Look at, based on the business intelligence you did, are they trying to drive traffic to their website? Do they have an event coming up? Do they have 6 products, but there's one that they really want to sell more of? So start to think about what it is that they're hoping to improve or accomplish. Now, you may say, well, you could just call them and ask them what they want to improve or accomplish. But when you're prospecting, you want to be kind of like an attorney. And by that I mean, you kind of want to know the answers to the questions before you ask them. That's going to allow you to lead your prospect in a direction that's more conducive to where you want them to go. If you've ever been talking to a new client and you step on a bomb and the conversation just gets out of hand, it's probably because you didn't do enough business intelligence, understand their pain points enough that you lost control of the situation. So this strategizing, the approach, is all about understanding your prospects' pain points and approaching them in a way that makes sense. And I'll read you some actual examples of how I do that in just a minute. But just know that prospecting is like a game of chess. If you don't have a strategy, you've probably already lost. So that's points 1 and 2, isolating the decision maker, strategizing the approach. So for the remainder of my time, I do want to dig into some of the ways that I use for persistent and professional touches. So, in the real world, or rather in the ideal world, closes come fast and easy. You call someone, sure, I'll buy. That's great, I'll take 10. That never happens. I mean, in the real world, my sales cycle is 6 months to a year. It takes a lot of time. I'm going to have to touch these people multiple times, and they better like me by the end of those 6 to 12 months, or else I have no chance of doing business with them. So I want to give you some examples of the ways that I interact with people. And a lot of them are quite simple. For instance, be nice to people. I mean, I know this seems like common sense, but I can't tell you how many times I thank people when I talk to them on the phone. If you think about the gatekeepers that are in front of the decision makers, receptionists, middle management, people that are just there to keep you from talking to the person you really want to talk to, they're used to people just being rude to them, showing them no respect at all. And to thank them for anything, whether it's thank you for telling me when so-and-so is in, thank you for giving me their email, just thank them. It goes a long, long way. One of my clients sells copiers, and he's told me when it's time to make a decision about the copier, he's going to sign the check, but he's going to ask the receptionist and the people who use the copiers the most who they want to go with. That's the point where it's so important that you've been nice to everybody you've touched along that path to the decision maker. Another example, another thing that I like to say is whenever dealing with anybody, if you're going to ask for something, give something first. So I'm going to demonstrate on Cole. What's your name?
My name is Cole.
If I said, my name is Neal, what's your name? Did that sound better? So Cole gave me his name because he's a good guy. But I put a little bit of a different inflection on that. But you can see that something as simple as giving before you ask for something makes a huge difference. And in a deeper conversation, that could be something as sensitive as a marketing strategy. So instead of saying, tell me about your marketing strategy, if I lead with, I've worked with other clients in your field, and this and this and this has worked for them. Have you ever seen something like that? They're much more likely to open up. It could be a case study. Could be an introduction. There's a million things that we can give away. If we're going to ask for something, we're going to have to give something first. That's leading with value. Another thing that I've done that I think has gone a long way for me is never ever making assumptions. And by that, I mean, if I'm calling a business and I don't know the decision maker's name, whoever picks up, I don't care if it's the janitor, I'm going to say something like, I'm seeking the person responsible for making this decision. Would that be you? Those 4 words, would that be you? I don't care if it's the janitor and he's got a mop. There's nothing like putting some wrong information in front of somebody to get them to want to give you the right information. The response is going to be, no, they don't pay me enough to do that. But I'll tell you who does do that, and they're going to lead you right to who you need to reach. So never make assumptions. The other reason that's really important is because if you say, I'm looking for so-and-so, will you put me through? And they say, well, you're talking to that person. Insert foot in mouth. Never make any assumptions if you don't know who the players are, because you could be talking to somebody who's a player. Furthermore, these receptionists, these gatekeepers that I speak of, they become decision makers over time. That's why it's very important to be nice to everybody. Continuing along this path of speaking to decision makers. Let's say that, in my case, a real live example, I see a fleet of trucks going down the road. It says perfect temperature plumbing. I know that advertisers, HVAC firms do really well with advertising on my type of medium. I can't find the name of the owner on the website, but I go to the Secretary of Commerce, and it says that the principal is a William Doe. If that's all the information that I have, I'm going to call the number on the side of the van, and when the receptionist picks up, let's say her name is Brenda, I'm going to say, hey Brenda, this is Neal. Is Bill in? And you would be amazed how often that works. Probably 5 out of 10 times, Brenda's going to put me right through to Bill, where normally if I'd said Mr. Williams or who's the decision, anything else, it's not going to work. The red flag goes up. What I'm trying to convey is, me and Bill, we're best friends. He just doesn't know it yet, right? And I'm going to proceed from day one, because ultimately my goal is to become a trusted consultant and a business partner with Bill. So why not just start on a first name basis with Bill? So when I was new in sales, I did Mr. So-and-so. And in certain cases, if it's a judge, if I'm in court, it's going to be Mr. But if it's a prospect, I'm on a first name basis. I'm going to assume that me and Bill are best friends. So let's follow along with Bill. I'm pursuing Bill. Brenda puts me through, and I'm leaving a voicemail. This is what my voicemail is going to sound like. Hi, Bill. I hope this finds you well. I'm calling because of A, B, and C. The benefit to you returning my call is X, Y, and Z. I understand you're a busy professional, so I'm going to follow this up with an email. Here's why I said every one of those words. Hey, Bill, I hope this finds you well. It's a pleasantry because I'm talking to him like a friend. I'm calling you because of A, B, and C. Bill knows I have a strategy. I've got a plan. I'm not going to waste his time. The benefit to you is X, Y, and Z. And by the way, this A, B, and C and X, Y, and Z, these are case studies. These are things that are going to improve or benefit his business in some way. These are things that Bill can want and use. I know you're a busy professional, so I'm recognizing that Bill is busy, and he probably is. And finally, I'll follow up with an email. What I'm doing here is I'm kind of taking control of the situation a little bit, because even though me and Bill are best friends, Bill's probably not going to call me back. And I know that. So guess what that email is going to sound like? By the way, I got the email from Brenda because I sweet-talked her a little bit, and then I thanked her for giving me Bill's email. The email sounds like this. Hey, Bill, I hope this finds you well. I'm following up on my phone call, so I'm connecting the dots there between the phone call and the email. The benefit to you returning my email is X, Y, and Z. Here's a little bit about the plan that I have for you. I have a teaser built in. I'll try you back next week. So again, I've touched Bill twice now with a phone call and an email. I'm being professional, but he knows that I'm being persistent. Bill knows that I'm not going away. And I've set an agenda so that if Bill just says, I'm going to blow him off, he knows I'm going to be calling him next week. The likelihood of Bill returning my call or email goes up if he knows I'm calling next week. So these are some of the assumptions that I'm making. I'm making the assumption that Bill's interested, and I know that because I've qualified Bill, and I know my product can benefit him. I'm making the assumption that Bill is busy. Most professionals that are good at their job are busy. And I'm making the assumption that there will be a payoff. And quite frankly, this is more for me, because all of us who are in sales, we know that it can be really, really tough. And sometimes you feel like you're just beating your head against the wall. But this is where you kind of have to have faith in your product. So these are the things that I'm thinking. These are the communications that I'm having with Bill. But I've touched Bill twice now. Now it's time to kind of set this drip campaign going. So if Bill hasn't reached out to me, I'm going to start taking this message and moving it across mediums. So I want to be Bill's got to be super aware of me. He's got to be considering me next time he needs advertising. So let's switch to an attorney example. I'll read you some examples of how I would go after an attorney. I'm calling you today about a marketing campaign that's generating leads for other attorneys in this market, in your same vertical of bankruptcy. That's what a phone call might sound like. I'm emailing you since I know this is a critical time of the year for malpractice lawsuits. I'm messaging you on LinkedIn because I found this legal advertising article. I thought you'd find it interesting. At attorney 1579, congrats on attorney of the month. So the point is, I'm changing the medium, but I'm keeping this professional, persistent message. It's making me look bigger because all of a sudden I'm everywhere and I'm hitting Bill from all angles. This is where I can start to move down this purchasing funnel. And in the case of Twitter, now I could start to bring in marketing automation into this. So Hootsuite is one tool that I use for Twitter, and in some cases I do use it for prospecting. Has anybody here heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? Show of hands for Gary Vaynerchuk. Decent showing for Gary Vaynerchuk. So Gary Vaynerchuk has a a show on the web. He's a marketer, and he's kind of on the forefront of digital marketing. It's called the Askgaryvee Show, and he takes 3 questions each day he does his show. And he reads the question, he gives a little bit of love to whoever gave the question. I've sent 50 tweets to Gary Vaynerchuk. All of them Askgaryvee questions, and it took me about an hour and 10 minutes. For the last month and a half, 1 tweet's gone off each day, each weekday. And Gary's seeing them. I've gotten 3 replies so far from Gary Vaynerchuk. I'll let you know when we get our question answered on the Askgaryvee Show. But the point is, I've taken this line of prospecting and I've automated it in some minor way. And this could be done across multiple verticals, across multiple platforms. It's going to scale this prospecting procedure a little bit more. Another marketing tool that a lot of people use that I'm a big fan of is Tout. Tout is an email tracking software that I've used in the past. It's T-O-U-T. What it allows you to do, wonderful for reaching decision makers, is see when people open an email and see what part of the process they're in. I have a friend who uses this for software as a system sales. He'll send out an email with a demo in it. Once they open the email, he lets them start the demo. Once they've gotten to page 6 of this demo, that's when he's going to call them and check in, because he knows people get stuck right there. So it's a little bit of a marketing automation tool that's just going to give you a deeper window into your prospect's status in growing awareness of your product. So that's a little bit about marketing technology. I'm coming close to 30 minutes here, so here's how I want to use the rest of my time. I want to speak about how important persistence is. And then I want to share what I call the Steve Jobs technique. And then I'll wrap it up with some closing statements. So about persistence. I've spoken a lot tonight about being professional persistence. I probably said that 10 times, but what does that mean? I mean, it's easy to be nice to people and thank them, but to be persistent is rare. In fact, I have people tell me, I can't believe you're still calling on me. Nobody does this. I mean, you guys usually change out every year or so. So being persistent is rare. It increases your chances of success because everyone else who's calling on your prospects are dropping off. According to the National Account Executive firm, which I know we all follow that very closely, I got some stats from them. Less than half of people make more than 1 call to a prospect. That's abysmal. 1 in 4 people give up after the 2nd contact. And for giving up after the 3rd contact, 12%. The same data shows that 80% of sales are made between the 5th and the 12th touch. That's why you have to be super persistent. I have a client that I just brought on board to have an advertising campaign. It's a dentist. It literally took 2 years for me to get them to do business with me. And it started just like we're talking about with these touches. Eventually, she started having me in, and we did some proposals. And then a few months ago, I sat with her, and I would not say this to a prospect on the first touch, but now we've been through some stuff together. And I said, look, it's been 2 years. You haven't spent a dime with me. Imagine how much attention I would give to your account if we could do business together. And she said, you're absolutely right, Neal. I know that you'd be a great partner. We are doing business now. And my point of that story is all this work that you're doing that feels like you're beating your head against the wall, you're actually just showing your value, and you're showing what kind of partner you would be if you're lucky enough to earn your prospect's business. So that's a little bit about persistence. The last thing I want to tell you about, I call it the Steve Jobs technique. If you're trying to reach a decision maker, and again, this could be any type of decision maker, it could be a recruiter. Apparently this worked for Steve Jobs. Here's what you do. You write a letter to your prospect. You proofread it like 1,000,000 times. It's got to be best dressed, letterhead on the top, MLA formatting. Look up how to do it correctly, so it's just perfect. And in that letter, you include a call to action that says, I will donate 5 hours of my time to the charity of your choice if you give me 30 minutes to talk to you about your business. If you know the charity of your choice, that's even better. The only other thing that's very important to include is you need to mention, I will call you at Friday at 10 a.m. Be very specific, because like we talked about, you're going to make it easy for them. You're going to take a little bit of control of this situation. Then you FedEx it overnight on a Wednesday. Nobody FedExes in market overnight. You know you're going to get somebody to sign for that document, and you know that decision maker probably does not get a lot of those letters. I've done this, it's worked. People have answered the phone and said, Neal, I got this letter on my desk. Obviously you want to talk to me. You know, here I am. It works, trust me. So feel free to use that technique, the Steve Jobs technique. It's you're investing a little bit in the shipping and the time that you're putting into it, but if it's a prospect that you can't break through to, by all means, try that technique. So here's what I want to close with, and then I have a brief offer I want to give. When you are prospecting, you're launching a series of individualized campaigns to your prospect. Just remember that. You have a full campaign on a targeted decision maker. Use professional persistence and have faith in your product. Don't give up. Never ever give up. Finally, lead with value and focus your communications on solving the pain points of your prospects. Because after all, it's all about me. It's all about me. That's what your prospect is thinking. So let them know early how you're going to provide that value and how you're going to help them. So I wanted to open it up to Q&A. Before I do that, I do want to mention this. You know, if you can't tell, I'm pretty passionate about sales and about B2B marketing. I run a blog. It's called proprospectors.com. So follow me on Twitter or check out that website. If any of you would like to connect with me, the value I'd like to offer is making introductions, helping you if you want to write a script to make these types of phone calls catered to your line of business. By all means, let's connect and set up a time to do that. So that's my offer to you. With that, I want to take questions, and then after that, I want everybody to meet everyone, and don't leave until you've met everyone here. I'm going to start with Cole because he's in the front.
So you mentioned touch points. One issue I think a lot of us have is that, you know, we're always afraid that we're touching too much.
Yes.
Can you talk about maybe your strategy? Do you have a Google Calendar that says specifically, hey, I talked to this person this day,
sure,
and I need to reach out to this
I do.
This day?
So the timing of the touch points, CRM is really important. If you have a good CRM system, by all means, put into that. I do use calendars. If I talk to somebody, I'm going to gauge their level of interest. If it's hot, I'll probably call them a couple of days. If they've verbally told me, look, I'm not going to be in market for 3 months, I will put it on my calendar 2.5 months to reach out to them. But you have to remind yourself because you're going to be touching a lot of different prospects. That's what I do. Yes. Hi, Melissa. Melissa asked the question, how do you title the email so they don't hit delete? And that's a great question. There's a few things that I do in an email subject line. One of them I learned from Barack Obama. In the 2008 presidential campaign, Obama shattered a bunch of records for the way he marketed with email marketing. The highest open rate that he had said, hey, 3 letters. So there's 2 things I do. I keep it as short as possible, and I almost always use the prospect's name because a lot of marketing automation software can't do that, and because we all love to hear our own name. So I want them to know before they even delete it that I know who they are and that it's going to be short and to the point. Well, my purpose of telling you the story about hey is keep it short. But no, I don't use hey in every contact. It'll be like, Melissa, consider this. Something like that. That's kind of, it's personalized, but it would be of that notion. Any other questions? I'm going to go, I saw Elise first, and then I'll go to you, Garrett. Thank you. Yeah. And plus, Steve can't disagree with me because he's not here anymore. That's true. Yep. Great question. The question was, prospect tells you they're not interested at that time. What do you do from there? How do you stay in touch? The first question I ask them when they say not at this time, well, first, I'm going to say I understand completely. I am going to ask, when is a good time? Because we're in sales, we have to ask these questions. I'm going to call you back, so I'm giving you the chance right now to give me some, because we're best friends, remember? I'm going to ask you what works for you. At that point, I'm going to put them on a newsletter, which is a soft touch. I'm going to add them to the newsletter, and I'm going to email them, or I'll ask them if they don't mind if I do put them on a newsletter. And the newsletter is just going to offer value. It's not going to ask them to buy anything. It's just going to be, look, I know you're in advertising, you're in marketing. I provide this information about marketing. I think you might see some value in it. I'm going to add you to my newsletter. That way I'm touching them once a month. I don't have to remember to do it. So it's going to move it from kind of a hard touch to a softer touch. And when the time is right, if they don't tell me, I'll probably put them off. In my case, 3 to 6 months if they don't tell me. But it's going to differ for everyone else. Good question, though. Garrett, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, it's really just a suggestion.
Yeah.
You said you mailed that letter. I did something recently for a hospital CIO. I mailed them a 14 by 14 cardboard box with a shoe in it.
Yeah.
And I put a letter in there. I said, now that I've got my foot in the door, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you. And
Yeah.
the guy never responds to anybody. He responded to me.
Really?
And I drew now engage him and get him aware of products.
For the YouTube audience, it was mailing one shoe in a box, which is a great technique. And there's actually a whole parade of funny, whimsical ways to do this. I've heard of people sending a remote control car without the remote control. So there's a million ways. But what you did of saying a foot in the door to tie it in to your product and to tell that story is the most important part, because you got to stand out in some way. But I love that, the one shoe.
So he got a FedEx.
Yeah.
Person sign it in front of the
Yep.
so I know their name. So you gather more information.
Yeah, you'll get on radar that way for sure. That's a good one. It all comes down to how much is it worth making that connection, right? Any more questions? Yes, Doug, go ahead.
So what clues do you pick up on to make the decision as to whether you're being persistent or they think you're being obnoxious?
So the question regarding what clues am I looking for, whether to dial in that touch point, if I'm correct. If a person tells me they're not in market, and in my business, I can kind of see what they're spending. Sometimes when advertising, it's kind of public information. If I can see they just launched a new campaign, they're spending a lot in the market, I can take other information and put it together, what they're telling me and what I'm seeing from other business intelligence, kind of gauge if they're telling the truth. If it's a smoke screen, I may decide that they're just put off a little bit, that my approach wasn't smooth enough, that I need to think of a different approach. And at that point, I'm probably going to try this softer approach, or I'm going to try and find a different way, a different introduction to them, something else, until I'm fairly confident that either they're not in market or it's just I need to put them out a good 6 months or so. Usually the red flags are pretty self-evident in most cases. If they're willing to talk to me for any amount of time, it's a pretty good sign that they're listening and they're eager to learn more. I hope that answers your question. Well, unless there's any more questions, I want to turn it back over to Cole or Chris, and I think we have a giveaway tonight.
Thank you, guys. All righty.
Thank you again, Neal.
All righty. Again, thanks for coming. Glad to have all of you here tonight, and I do want to try and shake hands with everybody before you leave. The other thing I do want to mention is give us your business cards. We're trying to set up a better newsletter than what will go through Meetup. If you haven't noticed, it's very limited, and Cole found a really cool hack, which if you want to pick his brain on it, it's ingenious. That's why the Marketing Insider got a lot better. But other than that, would love to put you guys on a legit newsletter we're going to be creating and running.
Yeah.
But certainly other than that, I do want to put out the reminder again to let's all connect on LinkedIn. I know I've connected with a lot of you guys over the past couple of weeks. If we, like I said, if we create more of a matrix kind of organization, we'll be able to help each other with jobs or finding that lead that you need. You'd be surprised at the power of your second degree connections that you can have. I mean, as Neal pointed out, it's huge, has been for me, and looking forward to having you guys here again in May when Jay Nichols presents on radio advertising. That's going to be really awesome. But we'll see you that month.